Go. Okay, good afternoon. I'm going to start on time today as we have a very packed agenda for you. So my name's Hilary Hanahoe. I am the Secretary General of the Research Data Alliance, which is, as everyone has heard me say many, many times, a really wonderful job. The Research Data Alliance is a great community of over 16,000 people. And this session is to give you a little insight into some of the many things that the community do via RDA. Before I start, and there's quite a few presentations, we'll be keeping quite strictly to time this afternoon, because I did say lots of insights. I would like to as is traditional and correct, acknowledge and celebrate the first Australians on whose traditional lands we are meeting, and to pay respect to their elders past, present, and I have heard said also future. So. The Research Data Alliance is organising this meeting. We are one of the 3 founding organisations of International Data Week. Together with our partners, the World Data System and CoData, we do this event once every 2 years. And you will, perhaps some of you who are new to IDW, will have started to see there are some slight differences in the sessions, the Research Data Alliance ones compared to the SciDataCon. But we believe, as 3 organisations, that they are actually quite complementary, and we get the feedback so far has been that it's very energetic and useful for you, and that is what this is about. The Research Data Alliance is founded on 6 fundamental guiding principles. In all of our meetings, we ask and hope that they are adhered to. Openness, everything that we do is open. Everything is community driven. It's driven and shall we say, agreed upon by consensus. We are very inclusive, and that's very important across many interpretations and definitions of inclusivity. Harmonisation, and that everything we do is non-profit and technology neutral, so that the work that the community does is openly available for anybody to take up and to reuse and to implement. So, the Research Data Alliance, for those of you who are not members, is free for individual membership. We ask you to join, because then, of course, if you join on the web platform, you are able to get involved and follow all the different activities and the groups. So, as I said, it's a very big, large and wonderful, vibrant community that covers all technologies, all domains, all different activities. Today, it's just an insight in this 90 minutes that we would like to give you. The first is, so there are different parts of community, some individual perspectives, some activities that focus a little more on outputs that have come out of RDA, but then we're looking at adoption, implementation and further work. How RDA partners with industry and commercial partners, bearing in mind those guiding principles and how we can work together. The activities around a project that the European Commission generously funded in Europe for 3 years, and that was in support of the global community, and some highlights and achievements from that. And then activities that the complex citation implementation interest groups, so we have working groups and interest groups, are doing. So, as I said, a whirlwind. Where the time slots allow it, there will be quick questions. Sometimes there won't be, so keep your eye on the speakers, and you may ask them, of course, for questions afterwards. So without further ado, I would like to hand over to Aleksandra Lazic, who's a PhD researcher from the University of Belgrade and the co-founder of the Repository of Psychological Instruments in Serbia. Unfortunately, the Research Data Alliance lost a colleague. She was one of our board members and also our council technical advisory board in late 2023. To honour her memory, we set up a fund, and we have a prize every 2 years, an award to honour, if you like, somebody who is doing work in support of open science and community engagement in open science. Our very first winner was Aleksandra, and she's going to tell you about what that award has meant to her and, of course, some of her work. Thank you, Aleksandra.
Thank you, Hilary. Hi, everyone. I'm really glad to be here in Brisbane for the 25th RDA plenary. almost exactly 1 year since I received the Sarah Jones Award for fostering collaboration in open science. And today I would like to share what that year looked like, both professionally and personally. Before that, just a bit of background. So in 2020, I co-founded Repopsy, an open repository for psychological tests, scales, questionnaires, and other research instruments in Serbian that I have been managing at the Lira lab at the University of Belgrade. And with time, it has become a national resource for psychology and social sciences. In 2022, we received our first funding from the EUSC Future Grant through an RDA open call. And that support was crucial because it helped us upgrade the repository, and it also connected me with the people who later nominated me for the award. So in November 2024, at the RDA plenary, 23rd RDA plenary in Costa Rica, I joined online and was announced as the first winner of the Sarah Jones Award. It was a touching session, and I got to share my acceptance speech, and later this beautiful statue arrived in the mail. Almost exactly at the same time, mass anti-corruption protests and student-led blockades of universities started in Serbia and are still going on today. So it has been a challenging time to work and to share professional successes, but I've come to realize that this is exactly the time when we should share stories about openness, justice, and community. So, thanks. So, Thank you. So 2025 came, and I first in February had an opportunity to give an interview for the Connect magazine of the organization Jean. I talked about what the award meant to me, how I got started with open science, and how the communities such as the RDA shaped my work. And I remember saying that already in February, I felt how the community is committed to making the award impactful and meaningful. Also in February, I was invited to join an online event called the Open Research Week, which is organized by UK universities. Actually, I was invited immediately after the award ceremony in November. And my talk focused mostly on how we used free and open source tools to build the repository, which made it more accessible and sustainable. And I also talked about how we got people on board and got them to use our service. Then in April, I joined the 24th RDA plenary, which was fully virtual, and I had a fireside chat with Hilary. It's a great format. I would always recommend it. So I talked about what the award meant to me and what I would advise to people who are starting out in data management. Also, a few weeks later in April, I had a career column published in Nature where I reflect on 5 years of managing the repository, and I also highlight how both the RDA and the Sarah Jones Award were relevant for both visibility of our service and for my confidence. And I wanted to highlight my view that open science progresses only when it is done in many different settings and in many new and creative ways, and not just in regions where resources are abundant. Later in June, I joined my colleagues at the ABRIR network on a project proposal that got funded by the Open Research Community Accelerator, or ORCA. We partnered with the University of Arizona to make it happen. And our first output was this educational module we published a few weeks ago. In it, we tried to encourage researchers from the minority world, so from Western countries, to reflect on their privilege, to learn from colleagues from the majority world and not just vice versa, and to build more equitable partnerships. In August, our paper called Open Science in the Developing World was published. It was led by researchers from the Chinese Open Science Network. And in it, we advocate for a redesign of open science to better fit the unique contexts of our regions. And apart from reflecting on the barriers, we also highlight a couple of success stories from our regions. And it is also a sort of, it's full of resources that help researchers engage in open science. And also on another note, I submitted my PhD thesis. I'm still waiting on my, oh, okay, thank you. No, I haven't defended it yet, but yeah. Okay, so I'm also on the lookout for new roles, so if you hear of anything good, yeah, let me know. I thought this was a good platform to say that, so. Okay. Also, I have recently stepped down as manager of RAPOPSI. So yeah, lots of changes this year, and I have trained 2 new PhD students to take over the management. This year we have added 32 new records to RAPOPSI, so I leave it with 282 records in total. And apart from instruments in Serbian, there are also multilingual instruments in English and so on, so even if you are not conducting research in Serbia, check it out. And yeah, I made a slide for this too, so I'm presenting now at International Data Week in Brisbane, and this opportunity was also made possible by the award, so thank you to everyone who donated to the award fund. And before the final part, I would just like to say thank you, or hvala in Serbian, and let's connect on social media. I'm on LinkedIn, Blue Sky, and Mastodon. And I'm also often at the meetings of the RDA Ambassadors Coordination Group. So if you are a member, consider joining us. We share highlights and opportunities in our meetings. And finally, I'm really glad to say that the call for nominations for the 2026 edition of the Sarah Jones Award for Exceptional Contribution to Fostering Collaboration in Open Science is now open, and it is live on the RDA website. Also, there is a poster in the hall, so you can check it out and scan all of the QR codes there. And I hope you nominate someone who makes you feel good about open science and data management and whose work uplifts others. So I invite you to learn more about the award and to donate to the award fund if you can. Thank you.
Oh, Aleksandra, thank you so much. So big boots to fill for whoever would be our award winner next year. It's been such a great journey to be on, and you still have another year, Aleksandra, so gosh, what you'll get done. We hope you'll come back and tell us how your dissertation went, and good luck with that. But so the nominations are open. The candidates, actually the nominees don't know that they're nominated. So anyone who's nominated for the last award will not know, and we encourage strongly resubmission. It was a tough choice with all the applicants that we have, and we have a wonderful selection committee and custodians of this fund that RDA just holds. We have a fund that we hope will allow us to continue this for a few more years, shall we say. So thank you very much, Aleksandra, for that. Now I'm going to invite my colleagues from the Global Open Research Commons International Model Overview and Use Cases Group there, and that's the title of the session that they're going to, or section that they're going to present on. Mikiko Tanifuji, Andrew Treloar and CJ Woodford. Mikiko is from Japan, from the National Institute of Informatics. Andrew Treloar from the Australian Research Data Commons, and CJ Woodford from the Digital Research Alliance of Canada, and they are the passionate driving forces behind the Global Open Research Commons, and we will settle with them for the next 25 minutes, some presentation, and then I'll have a few interviews and chats together. Over to you.
Excellent. Thank you, Hilary. So I'm CJ, and as Hilary said, I'm from the Digital Research Alliance of Canada, so I'm really grateful to be here in Australia and giving Andrew a break from traveling all the way to the other side of the world. So to get us started off, come on, you can do it. There we go. We often abbreviate the Global Open Research Commons to GORC, so you're going to see GORC and heard and on the slides repeatedly. The GORC initiative has started in RDA in 2016 as a series of birds of a feather sessions, or BOFs. An interest group was formed as a neutral place for folks to come together and discuss what is a research commons, what's required for a research commons, what might be considered as we work towards international interoperability. I was not part of the group at that point. I came in a little later, but one of the main supporting outputs that came towards this from the interest group in particular, which was published in 2023, is the GORC typology. This was the output of a lot of work over multiple years to kind of say, what do we mean when we say a research commons? And what are the essential elements of a research commons that kind of tie into that definition? And so there's a QR code there on the screen that brings you to the report and the supporting output. But I kind of want to focus on the graphic because that's often what we talk about or see when we think about GORC. So along the top here in the white is the human or social elements of a commons: governance structures, engagement, rules of participation and access, sustainability, and human capacity. Along the bottom are the more technical elements, which you would have as ICT infrastructure or compute, storage, network, and authentication authorization infrastructure, research objects and services and tools. They're tied together with standards, which is the core. And the idea behind creating this typology was to say, this is kind of what you need, something in each of these essential elements to create a research commons. The interest group, however, realized that there was a lot of work to do after defining that, though. So not just what you would need on this higher level or abstract level of what you would need for a commons, but then also what considerations should you have as you work towards international interoperability? And I think for most people in the audience, you realize just saying human capacity, well, what in human capacity? What are all the pieces therein that you could consider as you work towards interoperability? And that was the work of the very first working group within RDA for GORC. That was the GORC International Model Working Group. So in the International Model Working Group, we created a model, hence the name. And this was really to say, behind each of these hexagons in the typology, behind each of these essential elements, there's a series of entities and characteristics that define considerations, about 400 considerations of any project, organization, or program, or federation as they work towards international interoperability or towards a research commons in their own right. So more QR codes on the screen there if you would like to see the RDA recommendation. It was accepted as an RDA recommendation in 2024 with adoption stories to boot. But then as we've kind of worked with adopters since then, we've realized that the spreadsheet's a little bit intense. It is 400 items. So there is a narrative profile template as well for folks to go in and explore it a little more holistically. So 2 QR codes there for you to interact and explore. We also have a new WebGraph version that's in development, and we're hoping to share that more widely in November. So now we're actually in the second stage of working groups for the GORC initiative. The International Model Working Group concluded. We created a model, so there you go. But we realized that the GORC work wasn't done. And so now we have the GORC International Implementations Working Group to say, okay, we've identified what you might consider to build a research commons in various granularities and capacities and contexts, but how do you implement them? And that's what this working group is doing now. We also have a sister working group that started specifically to look at the health data context because, as you can appreciate, health data has a whole other set of considerations that need to be considered in terms of security and regional context too. We came together in a Lorentz workshop over the summer to discuss where is GORC going next, Is it the right direction? What's going to be our working plan moving forward, even within the context of these working groups we've already have started within the RDA? So this was held in July. We had about 25 attendees, mostly from European countries just because of the location and the time frame, but it was 5 days of incredible effort to identify recommendations for both how to use the GORC outputs to date and what the GORC initiative can do to improve usability and our work moving forward. Some of the high-level outcomes we heard were to focus on adoption and use of the model and step away from the development. The model was created, let people use it for a second, right? And then only change the model based on the feedback after those adoption and use have kind of been picked up. The other part was to revisit long-term sustainability and governance of GORC. The working groups take up a lot of time, they take up a lot of effort. It is volunteer-based within the Research Data Alliance, and so we want to make sure that we use that to the best of our ability and explore other ways of sustaining the GORC initiative. And so with that, I'm going to invite my colleague Andrew to come up and talk about the international model use cases to give you a better idea of how they're used in practice.
Thank you, CJ. And just the web graph version of the model that CJ referred to, quick foreshadowing, we got support from RDA Tiger for that, and you'll hear more about RDA Tiger a little bit later on this afternoon. So, you've heard about the model, you've heard about how we developed it. What are some of the ways in which it's being used? This is not an exhaustive list, it's to give you a sense of some of the possibilities. So the first is it's being used as a way for organisations to describe what they do, particularly in the context of a larger aggregation. And I should say that the first couple of examples I'm going to go through, actually the first 3 examples I'm going to go through, are specifically in the European context. And that's because the GORC international model is being picked up specifically in Europe in the context of the European Open Science Cloud. One of my RDA colleagues, a dear friend, Françoise Genova, who may even be online at the moment, who I co-chaired the technical advisory board with for a number of years, likes to say that the GORC model has become the lingua franca for EOSC in thinking about how organisations might hook into EOSC. Françoise is French, which is why she particularly likes the lingua franca line. So here's an example from PANOSC. So PANOSC is a collection of neutron sources and synchrotrons within Europe. The EOSC Federation is building a node-based model where they have thematic nodes and national nodes. And so I want to show you one thematic node and 2 national nodes. So this is one of the thematic nodes. And this is PANOSC saying, well, look, if we're trying to describe what we do in the context of EOSC, what would that look like? And I'm not going to show you all of the slides, but here's, for instance, is one of their slides where they're saying, okay, here's the governance structures and the rules of participation and access. What does that mean for us? So we have the ESRF host organisation, we've got 9 partners, and they essentially go through each of the hexagons, fleshing out what that might mean for them. Another example from Europe of an organisation that's using the international model to describe themselves to an outside group is EGI. So EGI wrote a position paper talking about how they saw the EGI Federation plugging into EOSC, and they used, again, the GORC international model. You can see here they're highlighting the compute, storage network and AAI component as one of the areas where they see that they could make particular impact. In terms of national nodes, this is an example from a presentation that was given a couple of weeks ago at an EOSC build-up event in Helsinki, where the my apologies to the Finns in the room, the Finnish national service provider, CSC, took this and said, okay, if we look at all of the things that we're doing in Finland that we might want to bring into a European Open Science Cloud, what does that look like? And so they essentially overlaid existing infrastructures onto the international model. So this is not just using the international model as a way of describing a single organisation or a single piece of infrastructure. It's a way of describing how a country might contribute into this larger pan-national initiative. So, and I'm not going to go through the detail of these. The point is that for each of these hexagons, they were able to identify particular things that they were already doing that mapped onto those hexagons. And then the last national example I want to share with you is the Netherlands. The Netherlands, again, is also thinking about how they might provide a national node that plugs into EOSC. And so this is a presentation from SURF, a large infrastructure provider in the Netherlands. And here they're essentially saying, let's think about all of the services that we provide to researchers. Some of them operated by SURF, some of them operated by DANS, and you'll hear from Wim Hugo, who works at DANS, a little bit later on this afternoon. How do these map onto the model as a way of thinking about how the existing Dutch services might contribute to an EOS national node? So this is very much this use of this model as a shorthand, both for describing what you do and describing how you might connect into this larger aggregation. And then the last example I wanted to share was, if you like, a policy example. We talked about the GORC international model at a session yesterday, and one of the questions was, okay, but how's it influencing policy? This is policy adjacent, I think was the phrase I used yesterday, and I think I'll stick with policy adjacent. So this is the Horizon Europe Work Programme for 26-27, which is, what is it, 130 pages, Hilary? Something like that. It's a very large document. One of those pages says, well, what we actually need to do is we need to enable researchers and organisations to actively contribute to open science. And probably 2 years ago, they might have stopped there. What they then said, and the development of the Global Open Research Commons. So this is now being written into funding proposals. It's not just being used by organisations to describe what they do, it's now showing up in funding proposals as something that the European Commission sees value in and wants to invest in. So I'll now hand over to my colleague Mikiko Tanifuji.
So, unfortunately, I couldn't join this Lowlands workshop, unfortunately, and I only received this after this event happened. But I'm glad that all makes sense to me in my experience in Japan for National Research Data Cloud. So the tips from this Lowlands workshop is the benefits would be to serve as a common vocabulary, which is in this case for EOSC as an example, but vocabulary is certainly the first step that it must be very difficult to takes time to create the common vocabulary, but it is very important for the following process of making models. To serve as a blueprints for the data sharing and governance. And number 3, to provide a broader context for the specific objects, which also very important, such as sharing data requires authorization and authentication. And even Japan, it's in a single united country, but it is really difficult to organize among other HPCs or data infrastructures or databases. So it is very important, I agreed. And to be potentially usable for commercial infrastructure providers, that's really, I learned that to open mind and welcome to commercial providers if it's beneficial and if it's even negotiation and arrangement is possible for sustainable ecosystem. That's in my opinion. And to be used by organizations to develop their own internal maturity models and measure progress internally. That's important to prove what you've done makes sense and make it to happen to other domains or scientific communities. That's also very important. So all those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 are very important identify benefits. So it's the result of this.
Okay, so we have 10 minutes left. And we have some questions. I have some questions for you. I'm going to ask each of you a question, and then I'll see if I'll just have a look. If you feel like you'd like to ask a question in a minute, just raise your hand now so I get a temperature gauge, because we're really on a short clock. Does anyone have a question? Okay, there's one down there. That's good. We start. So I'm going to ask one or two, and we will keep an eye if someone can bring a microphone to the gentleman there, and then I will do it. So I'm going to start with you, CJ, if that's okay. Okay, get ready. Yeah. And drum roll. No, you mentioned, of course, the Lawrence workshop. We see the benefits there. But for you, what were like the main takeaways? Because you and Mikiko and Andrew have worked on this for many, many years. But this was an opportunity, right, to open it to a bigger group of people, et cetera, and to have a much more intense, very focused discussion. So what were the main takeaways for you?
So in addition to the main ones that were listed previously and then also here, one of the main things I got, especially that very first takeaway we had, which is focus on adoption and support for adoption, that really told me that the directions we're taking the GORC initiative and the GORC 2 working group were in the right direction of creating the tools to better support adoption and use, creating better interfaces. And I might do a very small plug to say, if you are interested in using the GORC model or adopting it, we do have a co-located workshop on Friday from 1 to 5 p.m. So go look at the co-located events program. It is a limited number of spaces though, so you might want to do that sooner rather than later because we can only accept 15 people and there's already 10 people registered. The other thing that I would point out is the interest outside of the Research Data Alliance. And so we definitely had a number of people attend the Lawrence workshop that were both aware of GORC, but then also not aware of GORC, in RDA, not in RDA. And that really emphasized to us that we kind of need to work a little bit more on communication and outreach outside of the folks that currently are involved with the GORC working groups, and really help support those use cases to folks that are coming to it from outside RDA. And lastly, that there's benefit for using the GORC model in terms of internal processes for an organization to help improve transparency within your organization or doing goal setting, but then also externally motivated in terms of looking at interoperability in the small scale, but then also to that longer term, large scale of international interoperability.
I'm going to go to you, Mikiko, if you don't mind, and then back to you, Andrew. But you mentioned a little, of course, about your own national context, even though you said it's it's a complicated Japan. So how do you see the international model assisting and supporting, maybe in a context like Japan or in others, more on a national level?
I do believe that in the context between scientists, having an international model is very good. They may not listen to what I say, but if I refer to, by the way, this is not only my own belief, there is internationally discussed and proved and tried to be implemented for science could be working. And that phrase would certainly appreciated in scientists. To build the trust between when we're talking about infrastructure, normally scientists always say, why, and who is going to pay, and who is going to run for me. So I'm not going to run for you, but I'm going to run for us. You are with me. And through to this international global model, how fantastic. So everybody doing and experimenting the same thing, which is going to go the same direction of the science. So I think it's very, very good, even tough, huge spreadsheet. It is, I can't really revisit that Excel sheet anymore, but AI would tell me what to do with it, so never mind.
And we'll be talking more about how AI can help in a moment, but thank you, Mikiko. You talked a little, you said funding and things like that. Andrew, what are the, where do you see it in the next 5 years?
So I guess for me, the thing that, there were many things that struck me in the Lawrence workshop. For me, the thing that I keep coming back to is the range of ways in which the international model is being used that I had never thought of. And you're asking about the next 5 years. So I think we're probably just going to see more and more use cases over the next 5 years that I wouldn't have anticipated. The original driver, when we started in 2016 with that series of BOFs, was research commons, as CJ said, research commons are coming into existence. How do we think about interoperability between research commons? And for at least the first 3 or 4 years, the focus of the meetings we had at the RDA plenaries and at International Data Weeks was very much around how do we structure the model in a way that contributes to interoperability. And what I realised as we saw the different presentations at the Lorentz workshop was it's being used for people who aren't thinking about interoperability at all. They're thinking about it as a way of describing what they do within their organisation to each other. You know, this is how we can agree on how we describe what we're doing. They're using it as a way of looking for other commons that are similar to them that they could learn from. They are using it for interoperability. The PANOSC and the CSC and the Netherlands examples are examples of interoperability within a kind of a pan-national federation. But it's not just interoperability, and I would like to claim that we kind of carefully designed the model to be used in all those different ways, and we didn't. We got lucky. I occasionally think that 10 years' time I'm going to write an article which is the title of which will be something like The Power of a Good Graphic, because the hexagon image that CJ showed up first seems to speak to people in ways that I wouldn't have anticipated. It's simple enough that you could show it to a board and your board would look at it and go, yep, that all makes sense. And yet there's enough richness in there, particularly when you tease it out into the scary spreadsheet. There's enough detail there to inform the kind of the technology, more focused people within your organisation. So that I think was luck. Well, luck and a really good graphic designer. Thank you, ARDC, for paying for it. So yeah, for the next 5 years, who knows? It's going to.
Well, we know where you'll be in 10, right? So I would like to take that question. I'm sorry, but I can't see with the lights. I would remind you, for the benefit and the inclusivity of the people online, can you state your name and organisation and then ask your question? Thank you so much.
Hello everyone, my name is Harish Kumar and I'm from University of Vaasa from Finland. I am a PhD student in my final stages. So in my master thesis, I designed this kind of infrastructure for data transmission from smart meter to SCADA systems, where I consider different communication technologies, protocols, data centers, common information model, and what are the stakeholders they can take advantages, and also I did a steep analysis. So my question from this model was like, because whenever you're designing such kind of infrastructure, you have 4 questions in your mind: interoperability, security, scalability, cost, and regulations. So like, as also I attended a session, I forgot the session name, and we had discussion, I think you were there in that session, about metadata standards and interoperability. So what I analyzed from that session is totally dependent on the use case that you are designing. And it consumes like a lot of time, energy, and designing standards, reading standards, which is beneficial and which is used for a particular use case from different vendors that have different standards. So my thing is like, you designed this model, so what kind of information and documents did you use for building this model?
You have a very short time to answer.
Okay. So there is a Zotero library that we created to showcase what we used for, okay, yes, I created it, but that we used for showcasing what we used in the model, and there's also a lot of detail in the notes in that Zotero library that says which ones were analyzed and actually incorporated, which ones were analyzed and found not to be relevant. It was everything from government reports and policy documents, so looking at international law, to interoperability frameworks from EOSC and the European Union, to reports from who we were kind of thinking would represent the research commons communities from our speaker series, because we did hear from 13 speakers as part of the first GORC working group. It was a lot of literature from the research data community on what's important for security, as you highlighted, what's important in terms of sustainability, considering cost, what's important to consider in terms of metadata frameworks. And so there's actually, as we've highlighted, there's a lot more detail in the model itself that kind of gets into all the pieces that you've highlighted. And it's coming from about 200 different pieces of literature and sources that were found relevant. However, that Zotero library has now grown to be about 1,100 sources, and that's part of the literature analysis that we're continuing to undergo to ensure that it's capturing the concerns of the community and, you know, the material that continues to be published and created.
Thank you very much, CJ.
Can I follow up question?
I'm afraid I'm so sorry, but we're really pushed for time, and I ask all my speakers to respect it. So you hold that question till afterwards, please.
Catch us at afternoon tea.
Ding dong, the bell has gone. Thank you so much, CJ, Andrew, Mikiko, for joining us today, for the insights and for all the hard work that you do. So I mentioned in the beginning that the Research Data Alliance is very open, and we have all these, you know, non-profit, technology neutral, etc. We have many, many stakeholders, and we started to partner with industry, commercial organisations already last year. Now I'd like to introduce Connie Clare, who is the Community Development Manager for the Research Data Alliance, and Marcy Collinson, who's Microsoft Research Director, to share some insights on the work that is happening in RDA at the moment around Agentic AI, or AI agents in support of science and research. Thank you, Connie.
Thank you, Hilary. Thank you, everybody, also for this opportunity to share how the Research Data Alliance collaborates with industry partners to advance global data sharing and research infrastructure. So the RDA has a formal public-private partnership framework, and at present there are two pathways that organisations can really follow to get involved and support the RDA. So the first of those is facilitated RDA working groups, which are convened by a dedicated RDA staff member to develop solutions to research data challenges. We also have high-impact community activities, such as roundtables, workshops, white papers, and reports that are on mutual topics of interest. And this framework is really important because it bridges industry innovation with academic research infrastructure needs. And for our private partners, it allows them to collaborate with international data experts, everybody here and those in the RDA. They get co-branded outputs and gain global visibility and the opportunity to shape open research. And for the RDA community, this injects professional facilitation support. It can accelerate timelines to deliverables, and it provides an opportunity for real-world implementation perspectives and adoption. And critically, as Hilary said, the framework adheres to the RDA's guiding principles and processes. So the work is created by the community, for the community, and the outputs are openly available for adoption and reuse by anyone, anywhere in the world. I'd like to share a couple of examples, starting with groups that were supported first by Oracle for Research. And I would also like to thank Marcy Collinson on stage here again, because Marcy was also instrumental in establishing that partnership with Oracle. So the first group is Mapping the Landscape of Digital Research Tools, and this is also known as MALDREF. And the group completed their deliverables in September 2024. The aim of the group was to categorise and map the complex and diverse landscape of digital research tools so that researchers can better understand, navigate, and select the tools that they need throughout different stages of the research lifecycle. They started by creating a harmonised research data lifecycle model and a comprehensive categorisation schema of more than 250 different tool types. And they also created a structural framework for a community-curated database. And this work is now being continued by a successor group known as MALDREF 2. And I'd also like to share a second group that was started by Oracle for Research, Many of you might know this group. It's the Multiomics Metadata Standards Integration Working Group, which is also called MOMSI. And you'll know at RDA we have very unique and funny names for groups. So this group is very much active and in the process of creating deliverables. The aim of the group is to integrate fragmented metadata standards across multiple omics domains. So this allows researchers to combine genomics, proteomics, epigenomics, metabolomic data effectively. And in April 2025, they created an interactive dashboard comprising more than 250 multi-omic standards that they are curated in GitHub. And they've also created a collection of expert-reviewed standards in fair sharing. And building on the public-private partnership framework, the RDA has been collaborating with Microsoft. And earlier this year, we co-organised expert roundtables on artificial intelligence and research computing. And in May, the first roundtable focused on data readiness and data-centric AI. So this was all about how researchers prepare data for AI and develop the necessary skills for AI-driven research. And in June, we followed that by exploring high performance and quantum computing and how these technologies transform research capabilities. And these expert roundtables brought together, again, a global and diverse audience of data experts to have a discussion. And this was culminated in the publication of 2 open white papers that illustrate practical frameworks and best practices in these topics. And collaborating with industry allowed us to really gather rich multi-stakeholder insights and foster a really interesting and insightful dialogue that led to valuable resources that benefit the wider research data community. Now, based on a recommendation from the Data-Centric AI Roundtable, I'm really delighted and excited to share with you that we are also now embarking on a new adventure with Microsoft, and we'll be running a community consultation on Agentic AI in research. Marcy will talk a bit more about what Agentic AI is, but in essence, AI agents can autonomously assist with various tasks throughout the research data lifecycle, from literature review through to data publication. The idea is it can speed up research, it can reduce costs, and it can also provide access to advanced tools across multiple domains. And so I'd like you to mark your calendars, because in November, we will be launching this consultation. We'll have an open survey and information sessions that anybody here can get involved in. You don't have to be a researcher, and you certainly don't have to be an expert in AI. So we do have a poster on this, and there is some information on the RDA website. So I think I might need this. So I would just like to say, Marcy, I'm going to give you that because you might need that for the slides. I'd like to just say thank you very much to Marcy for your ongoing support to the RDA and for helping to make this work possible for the RDA community.
Absolutely, my pleasure. I may have switched brands, but I'm for research regardless of wherever I am.
Thank you. And so I just wonder if you can maybe start by telling us a bit more about the collaboration between Microsoft and the RDA, and specifically about the value of the partnership for Microsoft and how it aligns with your broader strategic goals and objectives.
Yeah, absolutely. So as Connie was mentioning, we facilitated these global roundtable discussions earlier this year. We had multiple sessions in multiple time zones to make sure that we had a true global perspective on the topics that we had aligned with Research Data Alliance of being of interest from a commercial perspective as well as from their perspective and a community perspective. So that was data readiness and data-centric AI, as well as high-performance computing to quantum, shaping the future of research computing. We at Microsoft strive to create positive impact with and for our customers, communities, and the society we serve. We actually have a group called Microsoft Research that does co-collaboration with public sector entities on projects that we deem of value to from the commercial perspective, but that we also know are impactful from solving an industry dilemma or advancing a societal issue that we can all benefit from. I think, if anything, the current geopolitical climate has illustrated how democratization of data and funding needs to be addressed. I think that we need to ensure that funding is not weaponized for political advantage, and that we ensure scientific discovery occurs regardless of halting or slowdowns from any one government entity. And it's because we benefit, all of us, from the scientific endeavors that you researchers are after, whether they be healthcare solutions or sustainability solutions. We all benefit from this, and so it doesn't end with one industry. I also want to say that when the community suffers, the business suffers. And so by working hand in hand with the community on development, not only do we create stronger products that you might adopt for your own research projects, but it's the right thing to do. And so we need to keep moving in that direction.
Thank you, Marcy. And so agentic AI is an emerging topic within technology. For those in the audience who might not be so familiar with the term, can you briefly describe what agentic AI is and why you think it's important for the research data community?
Sure. So agentic AI is artificial intelligence working autonomously with goal-oriented, instruction and also outcomes that they can independently create through compute mechanisms. The ability to use AI in order to advance specific domains and subdomains of research, especially with agentic AI capabilities, is immense. The time to discovery can be advanced, but also arduous tasks that you all have to deal with day in and day out can be eliminated with use of agentic AI, which only expedites your time to discovery, which once again benefits us all. I wanted to call out a couple of key elements from one of the Research Data Alliance white papers on data readiness and data-centric AI, because I do think that they fit hand in hand with this element. And so they are develop interdisciplinary AI training programs to build in-demand skills such as prompt engineering, agentic AI, data preparation, and ethical reasoning. Advocate for human-centered AI strategies to reinforce researcher agency, ensure equitable access, and mitigate automation risks. Support smaller domain-specific AI models with curated data sets to foster inclusivity and reduce environmental impacts and improve adaptability. And so those are just a few of the key takeaways from the RDA white paper that I think really feed into why agentic AI needs to be looked at with the community, and also that we as a tech company have an immense responsibility to ensure that we are adding reasonable and responsible and ethical practices into the development and creation of the products that we put forth, because they have serious impact on our society, and that can either be positive or negative. And I think getting it right the first time is the right thing to do. And so we need to be making sure that we're looking at that. I'm going to use this now as an opportunity to talk a little bit more about this new effort that we're going to be working on with the Research Data Alliance. I work very closely with our research technical lead in the UK. His name is Ryan Payton. Unfortunately, he couldn't be here today. However, he's facilitated over 30 workshops with 30 plus researchers each session to really dive deep into the researcher life cycle and come up with agentic AI scenarios that they all agree can really benefit the community, but also that we can start to look at from a commercial perspective. And so you can see there's about 11 examples here on the screen. What we're hoping to do with this new effort with the RDA is to have you all weigh in terms of which of these rise to the top in terms of priorities. Once we've identified those that seem to be of peak interest to the community, the next phase of this sponsorship that we want to stand up is going to then have the community come together in a working group to then map this out, blueprint it with us, and really create deep architecture around those 2 to 3 scenarios. Then it's my job to take that back to our engineers in Microsoft and see if we can't stand them up in OpenAI or GitHub or somewhere open access that you all can start to utilize them.
Thank you, Marcy, and thank you for sharing this research lifecycle model with us. Could you give an example of an agentic AI tool or how agentic AI is currently being used in research?
Sure. I'm a visual learner, so I thought adding a few example slides in might be helpful. And so Just earlier this year, Microsoft announced that we are in private preview for an Agentic AI platform that is centered around scientific capabilities. So you can see on the screen here that we have a chemistry agent, we have a life science agent, we have a physics agent. As we go deeper into development, we want to keep rounding out those domains and subdomains that we need to ensure are part of the equation as this platform comes to fruition. And so I just wanted to give you one example, and I took a sustainability cue, and I asked the Discovery that I want to identify novel immersion coolants for data centers focused on minimizing electricity consumption and that are not harmful to the environment. So from that prompt, and mind you, this is an agent I'm using as a proxy to then dive deeper with other agents to really explore how much can be sourced from the data that's out there in order to create a comprehensive report for whoever's asking. So then from that, if I can get it to advance, there we go. You can see that it goes into our agent database, and you can see from that question or that queue, it pulled up a chemistry agent, a regulatory compliance agent, a core Python science tool agent, so on and so forth. Then they all act autonomously to go as deep as they can into that query and create a comprehensive report. And you can then see that it pulls up latest advancements, key coolant properties, PFAS concerns, alternatives to PFAS, future trends, generative models for coolant design, so on and so forth. And so this is really where the future of agentic AI can start to be useful and beneficial in terms of advancing scientific discovery in each and every domain. And while this is still in private preview and we do have a very long list of customers waiting to get access, I did want to let you all know, I guess it cut off that last slide. I'll just talk through it. So we actually have, if you have a Copilot 365 license, we did launch general availability of 2 of our agents called Researcher and Analyst earlier this year. And those are actually proving to be very useful for research endeavors. And so I'm actually hoping to work with the Microsoft research team to put together a best practice guide with use of Researcher and Analyst so that you all have some guidance on how you can use those agents that are available today if you do have a Copilot license.
Thank you, Marcy. Thank you for sharing your insights with us. We are very excited for the next project with you, and we hope that many of you here will help us to prioritize AI tools in the future. So please have a look online, and we'll see you there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, and we are very grateful to Microsoft. RDA does not have systemic funding and partnerships with, which wasn't mentioned, or maybe, but I'll be very blunt about it, partnerships with industry that preserve and are within this framework are very important to us as they help us to sustain and stay open. So we move on. Another way in which we have been sustained, or at least in Europe, but was of very important value to the rest of the RDA community globally, was through a rather important grant that the European Commission funded called the Tiger. And now we're going to hear from the project director and the executive director of the European office, Delipalta, and the chief technology officer from DANCE, some of the successes and what happens when you let a tiger roar. So I will hand it over to you for the next 15 minutes.
Thanks, Hilary. Hi, all. So I will start with a summary and some highlights of what we have been doing in the past 3 years, how we have supported the community, and then I will hand over to Wim, who will present the RDA knowledge base that launched formally this past week. So, as Hilary said, 3-year European Commission funded project. And in the past 3 years, we've been providing support to the RDA community in 4 main ways. Our core service was our in-kind support, facilitation, communications, output support, and engagement. We provided small grants up to 5,000, a total of just over 40,000 for the engagement of external experts in support of the development of working group outputs. We provided 150,000 in cascade grants, so bigger projects, again in support of output development and working group progress, but also to facilitate the adoption of outputs across Europe. And I'll talk about this in a little bit more detail in a minute. And the knowledge base, which Wim will present in a second. So some figures, some numbers. With RDA Tiger support, we have contributed to the development of 13 new statements of work. We have supported 31 plenary sessions, 8 adoption grants, and 15 travel grants to allow the attendance here in IDW in Brisbane. 20 groups are receiving facilitation support. 3 groups have received dedicated and bespoke communication support, and 7 cascade grants, 8 external expert grants. And I wish I had more time to go into detail, but this is all available on the RDA Tiger web pages on the website. Our cascade grant projects were sort of 2 different types, more general working group support and support to facilitate the adoption of outputs. You have already seen the web interface for the GORG model yesterday in yesterday's session. And we have also facilitated the adoption of outputs in various levels, so both national and institutional, among other things. And this is all available on the website. We will also launch a Cascade Grantee interview series in the next few weeks, so watch this space. More information is coming. Past 3 years, 12 new working groups have been created with the support of RDA Tiger. 2 are still in the process of producing a case statement or are under tab review. 300 new RDA members actively working on our supported working groups, and a total of 96 co-chairs are being supported. 9 working groups started receiving support after they had already started, and 13 new outputs and recommendations have been created with our support, 7 more expected by the end of the year. And this is a quick snapshot of the working groups that are receiving in-kind support. So this doesn't include our cascade grants or our smaller grants, but it gives a good idea of just how much we have been doing in the past 3 years. But at the heart of RDA is our community, and we have also been spending time to enhance existing collaborations and build new collaborations, to support the, to promote the value of the working groups and the outputs in various fora. We have run a series of webinars, both thematic to facilitate conversations, for example, on metadata standards and facilitate cross-fertilization, but also at a national level. We have been supporting plenaries. And with the RDA Tiger support, we are also at the RDA Europe office launching a new initiative, the RDA in Europe Annual Summit, which I had to talk about. It's the first iteration is taking place in November. On the 18th of November, registration is still open until the end of October. It is very generously hosted by RDA France and CNRS. And we hope to see many of you there. It's going to be an opportunity for the European community and the regions to talk to each other and learn from each other. And we hope that it will be great and that we'll see a lot of you there. So the last thing I'd like to talk about is something that we are still working on. It is it's an RDA Tiger output. It is our big landscape report. Given that the RDA Tiger is an EOSC-related project, it does have a focus on the strategic research and innovation agenda and various EOSC-related groups. But earlier this year, we started mapping the RDA working groups outputs, some cases interest groups, to the European ecosystem with this focus on EOSC, but also looking at national open science strategies and other areas of work within Europe. And we are hoping that this will be a useful resource for the European community to navigate all the very useful, relevant, impactful work that the global RDA community is carrying out that is directly responding to the European priorities and challenges. I will show a few examples. I do have a video. I'm not sure if it will work, but I will try. Yes, it's working. So this is one of the chapters we are working on. It's the analysis of working groups with respect to the EOSC implementation challenges as defined in the Strategic Research and Innovation Agenda. The report is mainly a narrative, but it is also including this visualization, which was a great idea provided by the RDA Secretariat, and we're grateful because it provides so much more depth, and it allows a user to interact, for example, select a challenge, get a view of all the different related groups, their outputs, how they contribute, and all the relationships between the challenges and the groups themselves. And I will also show another example, which has been developed. This particular piece of work is the mapping of the Research State Alliance groups to the European National Open Science Policies. And this particular piece of work was developed in collaboration with the RDA Secretariat. And again, it's really impressive, and we are really excited. The final report will be available by the end of the year. And with that, I think I'm on time, and I will pass on to Wim.
Thanks, Alex. A quick overview of the knowledge base that we have created in the RDA Tiger project. Those of you that have been involved with RDA for a while will know that historically the outputs and supporting and supplementary material produced by RDA were published, as it were, in different locations. And that's changed now with a focus on Zenodo. But it remained a challenge for us initially in the Tiger project to consolidate all of these outputs that historically were created by RDA into a single catalog that can be indexed so that people can easily find all of the resources created by ourselves. So that's been done in the RDA knowledge base, and effectively what we have done is to superimpose a graph that is linked to all kinds of controlled vocabularies for classification of those resources on top of where these resources might be published physically. And in future, of course, it's not out of the question that some research outputs, some RDA outputs might find their way to peer-reviewed journals or even to standards organizations to be formally published. So this sort of loosely coupled arrangement on top of wherever these resources might live will continue to be useful to us, in my view. Now, this RDA graph, together with some tools to interact with it, we collectively refer to as the RDA knowledge base. But if you consider for a while that something like a metadata schema applied to a resource that RDA is publishing is effectively just a set of controlled vocabularies and open text fields that can be committed into a graph, and is very similar to a structured annotation of content by using these graph nodes, then the formal publication of RDA outputs effectively is just an annotation. So that's the highest level of abstraction that we have implemented here. So quickly looking at the discovery environment, we've implemented this sort of drill-down dashboard environment that gives you a very quick overview of all the resources and supporting outputs, and increasingly annotations that are available to the community. So by combining a selection of all these different facets that, by the way, are completely configurable, so it's easy to add new ones, one can quickly get to a subset of resources that might fit your current line of inquiry. So this helps us to very quickly drill down to and find applicable RDA resources for our current interest or context. We also present the same dashboard in a typical sort of catalog listing view, where you can further refine your search. You can save those searches so that you can always have a URL that will show you a dashboard or a listing of the content that you're interested in. So all of these tools are packaged together in the search and discovery tool. And of course, you can go to a detailed view of each resource. And if it's published, for argument's sake, in Zenodo, it's straightforward to get to the formal publication wherever it might be. But as I said, because we view all of these things just as a structured annotation in a way, we can define as many of these schemas as we like. So each working group, in theory, could have a schema with vocabulary and free text elements that it uses to classify its landscape analysis. We can also, in general, go and classify and annotate content in the web for the purpose of general use in RDA. And we've had several examples this afternoon. For instance, some of the Tiger-supported working groups, such as MOMSI, TRSP, and others. We are in the process of committing their landscape analysis into the graph so that it can easily be reused again, found and reused. And similarly, the landscape analysis report that Tiger is producing will also be committed into the knowledge graph so that people can easily find all of these references at a fine level of granularity. So the annotator is quite easy to use. It's deployed as a plugin, which you can incorporate into your web browser. You invoke it, you can indicate text in any web resource, and then go and annotate it with either a combination of free text or controlled vocabulary, which, by the way, includes the cork as a sort of a two-level vocabulary, because for us, again, it's a very useful way of organizing knowledge. So it's sort of a knowledge organization system in the context of the annotator. Be that as it may, all of these annotations are then committed into the RDA knowledge graph. You can selectively switch them on and off. And we have agreed, internally at least, that the landscape analysis and the formal outputs that go into this graph as annotations have a slightly higher status than any old annotation that any of us might add, in our normal course of work. So there is a measure of quality assurance in there. What's coming soon is PDF annotation support, which under the bonnet is not particularly simple to implement, but we're making good progress there. Support for other kinds of browsers, easy installation, and then authentication so that you can manage your own set of annotations, easily find them back, and make perfect use of it. And I want to conclude in the 1 minute and 28 seconds that I've got left to say that we put a lot of effort collectively here into voluntary contributions to the greater good. And to my mind, having such a tool available is a mechanism for us to make all of this effort findable and reusable at a fine scale of granularity. Because, as I often remark, these reports go to the big PDF graveyard in the sky once they have been produced, after which they become very difficult to recollate into a specific line of inquiry. So hopefully these tools will be suitable for making an improvement to the situation. I'll be available during the coffee break at the RDA stall, at the RDA stall if you have any questions, and I'd be happy to answer them. Thanks.
One last thing before we wrap this up in 17 seconds exactly, to thank everybody, because we are coming to the end of RDA Tiger. So I really wanted to give a massive, massive thanks to everybody who made this work, to the team that made it happen, some of them behind the scenes, some of them working directly with a lot of you, past project and team members, current project members, and a couple of future members joining us this month. Thank you, thank you. It all happens because of our incredible team. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alex. And yes, apologies for rushing you, but we have 15 minutes left, and these ladies are due now on stage. I told you it was a carousel and a whirlwind, and as I said, just a small sample of some of the wonderful things that the community do. So all the different components of the community, including our European office and all the wonderful work. So I invite on stage to give us a whirlwind tour of complex citation activities, Shelley Stoll from the Australian Geographical Union, Martina Stockhause.
You said Australian.
Oh, sorry, American, AGU. But you could come to Australia and stay here now, maybe. Yeah. Martina Stockhause and Lesley Wyborn, and I will leave it to you.
Okay, so I've been given 2 slides to talk about the complex citation, so let's set the scene. Our research is getting a hell of a lot more complex than it used to be. We've got a lot more inputs, a lot more artefacts, and we go and publish a paper, and the journal says, I'm sorry, you can only have 20 ID citations, and that's it. So we are looking at addressing this limit of references. They're going to stay. It's not going to be something that we can solve very quickly, but I think we're making progress because, after all, credit is really important. If you've had a funder spend a fortune getting you to get samples from Antarctica or something, you know, they want a bit of a justification, or somebody's got a big data set or components of that data set, how do we trace it? And again, research results, we believe, need to be traceable and reproducible and usable in knowledge graphs. But as we get to that fine granularity, it actually is very hard currently to trace the individual components. And so we had a few sample use cases, and they just grew and grew and grew. The first was Deb Agrawal's one with the Meriflux, where you had, again, this is something happening with AI. We're trying to put more and more and more aggregations of data sets together, but the people who did the original or input data set are not getting credit, and you can't do that in current publication limits such that they are traceable and citable. Second, we had with the oceanographic data sets, where they were trying to actually be able to cite subsets of larger data sets and just cite those objects that were part of it. And then with Martina's use case, tracing results. So when you've got a figure or a model, you've got a lot of inputs. How do we trace them? And then I came along with the use case of samples, where someone will write a paper, 1,000 samples from 20 different collections. How do we get the individual citations? Or another one, a geochemistry one. Yes, I am a geochemist. How do we trace those individual analyses as we do these aggregations? So I'll now hand over to Martina to do what our recommendations were.
So we had a dedicated working group which just finalized with the publication of our recommendations at the start of this year. So I will briefly present our recommendations. So the first thing that we came up with is that we need a new type of DOI to solve this problem of citing a large amount of data sets stored across different repositories. It has to be easy on the one hand, but also flexible, so that those who are more advanced are able to provide more information than just a long list of data sets which need to be cited. So the new type of DOI we call complex citation object. For those who have joined us in early sessions might have heard the name reliquary, so this is still the same thing we are talking about here. And a complex citation object consists mainly of a list of references to research objects which should receive the credit and which are preserved in repositories. So it's a construct, and the contained references we call linked digital objects. And just to emphasize, the difference to a normal data citation is that we don't want the credit to the creator of the complex citation object, but to a layer deeper, to the linked digital object, so all the references contained in the complex citation object. And for that, we need to include a lot of actors in the publishing and credit world to come and support and implement our recommendations. And the recommendations are as follows. We have 10 key recommendations. We summarized it into 5 bullet points here. The first is really saying something about our aims. We should support credit, traceability, and transparency by these CCOs, and of course allow for machine actionability. The second part is we need a very simple list of data and digital identifiers that enables us to track them. And of course, to attribute the credit, that's our main goal. The next is coming with DOIs. So we recommend that the complex citation object has a DOI as identifier. That was something very pragmatic coming out of our consultation with the different actors. So the publishing world really needs DOIs to take that on. The next part, DOIs come with all these requirements for stable, version, resolvable, persistent. The next part is also a pragmatic limitation, so we limit it to a 2-layer PID graph level. So we will not have something like a complex citation object is contained in a complex citation object. So this is something we rule out because it's not implementable at the moment. So we see this complex citation recommendation as a first approach for solving this complex problem in a simple way. The last part is really about maintaining these CCOs with open license, flexible to support all the use cases, but simple enough to be provided by all the use case providers, by those who are not that advanced as other groups. So what we have achieved is we have this recommendation, which is a concept. It's not really the implementable recommendation. We have made a proof of concept using the IPCC use case. So just to be frank, the real challenge was to gather the information and then to map it to Zenodo and publish it was a bit easier. So we have that, and the QR code resolves to these 107 figures. There's also an adoption story available in the RDA web pages if you search for it. So, and what leaves open, I hand over to Shelley. So the proof of concept showed us what is necessary to do for the next step, for the implementation. So we have the implementation interest group, which Shelley will introduce.
Thank you, Martina. So as CJ had noted during the GORC session here, it's one thing to write your recommendation, it's another thing to implement it, and you really need to start to implement to understand exactly what you have. So that's exactly what we did. So thank you everyone who reviewed our complex citation implementation interest group statement of work and went ahead and approved it. We've been working on it on Mondays. If you would like to join us, we've got 2 different time zones and we have 3 different task groups. So Martina has already stated this, but we're calling it a complex citation object, but if you actually look at it, it's quite simple. It's just a list. It's quite easy, but to wrap your brain around why this is important, so you have to be in a discipline where many different digital objects went into the construct, into the research that you have. And we have a multidisciplinary set of use cases from almost, quite a number. And we're really delighted that and getting word back that people are counting on us to actually get the implementation through. So join us, please, to make sure it happens. So 3 groups: implementation, technical, and adoption. We started the implementation task group and the technical task group. Those are already going. James Aliff is running the implementation task group, and you can see what defines that here with the challenges and the work. Primarily all of the different actors within the workflow, which includes everything from repositories to publishers to indexers to a lot of the murky parts of the behind-the-scenes publishing world. The folks that are the indexers are really key here to understand what it means to have automated attribution and credit, which really brings to the forefront what does that mean exactly. So we're actually finding ourselves in some esoteric conversations. So if you see some spun off workshops about what does it mean to actually be credited with a data citation, join us. That's going to be fun as well. Martina is running the technical task group. She's in direct conversation with the folks at DataCite, as well as working through all of the mappings and necessary for everything to work smoothly. And I am incredibly grateful for that working group, that task group. And we have not yet kicked off adoption. We will do that shortly, and I will lead that one. And this is trying to help all of the different workflow actors to first get folks to actually jump in and do pilots and give it a roll. Hopefully we'll have something tangible by the time we finish up our statement of work. So I think that leaves me with 4 minutes. And thank you.
I thought you were going to keep talking for 4 minutes. You could have if you wanted to. But thank you. We are at the end of the session. I'm very grateful. Please stay there. And as you see on the screen, so it's Thursday, right? Your session where people can join and get involved, yeah, in M4. All right. So thank you very much. For those of you who aren't familiar with the Research Data Alliance, I hope there are some new people in the room. Just show of hands to those who are actually new to the Research Data Alliance. Oh, okay, so there's a good few, not but a good few, but please join. You see, this is just a really a little glimpse into the work that is done, and we're very grateful because all the community, it's by the community, for the community, as was stated before, but it's a huge volunteer work force, huge, and it's all volunteer and not paid. Indeed. So that brings us to the end. I would like to, though, thank, because behind every large, huge community, there's a teeny tiny team, and I am very lucky to have a really teeny tiny, amazing team.
Hilary, can we questions?
Oh, well, it's past, ding dong, sorry.
I gave them 4 minutes.
Well, yeah, but somebody stole 4 minutes before. So you've given them back, but I didn't realise that you wanted the questions. I'm afraid not.
Catch us later on Thursday.
Yeah, you've got your session tomorrow. Is that all right? Sure. Yeah. Who wanted to ask a question to Shelley? Yeah. Oh my God, and the back. Yeah. All right. Well, okay. Is it a short question or a long question? And can we get the microphone really quickly? Because in fairness, 4 minutes. I see the hand waving. As stated before, please do state your name and organisation and make your question short for the benefit of those online.
I will keep it really quick. Matt from DataCite. Just wanted to... I know we need to catch up. I wanted to quickly ask how much thought or how much exploration have you done with citation formatters and also reference managers? Because I think that's something that DOIs plug into, and then how do we kind of feed this complex citation into that?
Yes, and yes. Yes, we did that, and yes, we will, and thank you. So Matt is the executive director at DataCite. Hi, buddy. And thank you so much for being on the journey with us as we're trying to figure all of this out. There's a recent paper by Christina of Raffenfeld. Is Natalie here? There you go. Natalie, see, get your hand up. So Natalie Rea and Christina Raffenfelder wrote a paper on why reference managers are really challenging for data citations. It's in the CoData journal. Really important for you to take a look at that. It just won an award too. And it talks about why data citations are having trouble. God help us that we're actually going to be able to get the complex citation through. But honestly, it's easier to do that than to get publishers to do it. Really sorry, publishers. That's just a fact.
Thank you, Shelley, for that answer. And with that, we leave it. And we use this in RDA, but we say that if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Join us on the journey. It's 12 years on, and we're still going. So, and we're really, this is what the journey, where the journey takes you as well. So thank you very much for joining us this afternoon in presence and online.